Rob Brown here on this Wednesday morning, man. We got a great lineup. Executive producer Brendan Martin down in Ocala. Cold weather down there affects them differently than it does up here in Memphis. Coach John Brady in Baton Rouge, the
Whoops.
capital city of Louisiana, got in, he
Hey,
said last
Coach.
night about 1 o'clock. Are you sleepy?
Oh no, I'm fine. You
Okay.
went dead there for a minute. No, I'm fine. I got up. I get up early anyway, and
I do
in
too.
fact, when I got back to the house last night, I turned on the SEC network and watched some of the replays of the game. So I'm not coaching again, but I get excited watching it and see what everybody else did and how they did it.
Well, one of the things, and Brendan will attest to this, when you're on, it is like you are still coaching. You are so high energy, and I think you would be awesome if you were on SEC Network or, doing the college basketball games because your breakdown of all these games is just their insight's incredible. We'll also have guys Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net join us, and Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal in Knoxville. So get your QR code. Take a picture with your phone. Be a subscriber because we're live streaming Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Most of our viewers, Brendan has told me, 75-80% watch us just on those platforms. But we're all over. Coach, let's talk starting with LSU last night and the
Okay.
SEC because this is shaping up to be a special year. I know it's early. There's a lot of games to be played. You're a coach, so take it away from here because we're going to take notes.
Well, LSU team. I thought from the beginning one of the biggest issues with us is we don't have a first team all league player. We've got a collection of good players, but we don't have a bona fide first or even second team, in my opinion, the type of talent. Coaching's one thing, but when good coaching and good players get together, you got to have a couple of guys who can make plays on their own, and that's where we struggle. Plus, we lost Jalen Reed, who's 6'10", about 250 pounds, and gave us a little bit of inside presence. Now we don't have any real scoring off the post. So for us to get 75 points, we have a collection of post players that need to get at least 25, and then it puts pressure on our perimeters to get 50, which gets us to 75 points. So
Yep.
most of the teams in the league score 80 plus. So it's going to be difficult for LSU. The MO on LSU is they're pressuring our perimeter, making it difficult for them to make plays on their own, and then guarding our post men one on one. So, and that's what Missouri did. That's what Vandy did. And, on our Vandy loss, we were the only SEC team that weekend to lose.
Yeah, Coach. Hopefully you are.
Half court defense. They rebound the ball well.
Yeah, Coach. Looking around the conference last night, Kentucky. A lot of people are excited about them. They're Kentucky. They're like 60-year-old nude photos of Marilyn Monroe that no one has seen yet. People are going to want to see them. That's just the way it is. That's Kentucky basketball. Last night they go on the road to the Stegman Mausoleum, but it was lively last night. Georgia gets a win over Kentucky. It's a convincing win. Do you know Mike White?
Yeah, I know Mike. I knew him when he played high school basketball in New Orleans.
God,
Hmm.
I mean, I'll tell you another New Orleans guy that I remember as a kid growing up. Hell of a point guard at Ole Miss was Sean Toohey. Played for Bob
Absolutely.
Weltlich. Bob Weltlich, one of my favorite coaches because he was a hard ass. He demanded greatness. Bobby Knight is what I think. But that's me. But Mike White's doing something at Georgia, and he's tapping in. I don't know. There's so many players in the Atlanta area, but let's kind of go through each of these teams that played last night. You broke down
Okay.
LSU. Uh, LSU is one of those programs growing up. I watched so much. I remember your Final Four team in '06, and you always go, how in the state of Louisiana, how can you not win in every sport? And I hope it happens. But there's a long way to go in this season. But Georgia last night, how big a win is that? And can they sustain that? And how good is Kentucky?
Well, Kentucky to me is a team that they're going to rely on making 3-point shots, and my question to that is what travels in the SEC? What can keep the score, the game workable night in, night out? Is it shooting the basketball from the 3-point line, or is it basing your team on defending and rebounding every single night? And I think the Georgia team is more geared toward defending and rebounding than shooting threes. Example, Kentucky makes 17 or 18 threes and scores 106 at home against Florida. They take that game to Athens to play Mike White's team. Mike White takes them off the 3-point line a little bit, and Kentucky struggles in that game to score it. So I think teams that survive in this league are the ones that are going to defend it better and rebound it better over the course of the long run, because I think that's the best situation when a team is built on that. And I think that's what travels in the SEC.
Yeah, and you think about Georgia, another one of those programs like LSU. You've got every resource in the world right there in front of you, and when they get it going, I mean, you did it at LSU. Mike White was at Florida, comes up to Georgia, a rival, a hated rival. Um, but they're off to a. I think that they were off to their best start since 1931. So hell of a year. All right, last night got a lot of Gators watching this thing. Brendan Martin and his dad on the GatorBaitMedia.com. Uh, I can't remember a number one ranked team, and it's early, second conference game, but
Yeah.
Tennessee, it wasn't that they didn't have a good game. Florida didn't let them. Talk about that matchup, what you know about Todd Golden. Rick Barnes, second winningest coach in basketball, right behind John Calipari. But, man, Tennessee was just, it looked like me during duck season. You're in a foggy haze because you're up at 3:15, 3:30, 4 o'clock every morning.
Well, it's hard to explain that game in my mind, especially the separation of the score, 34 to 15 at the half,
Yeah.
73 to 43 is a final. But I think those numbers dictate somebody was guarding somebody pretty well. And you look at the field goal stat. I think it's something like 21% Tennessee shot for the
Yeah.
game, and I think it was a unique situation where Florida was ready to play. I thought Florida before the year was really good. They got excellent guard play. They shoot it well from the three. They got a good balance of post players who can score it as well. They defend it as well. I think Todd Golden is one of the best young coaches in the country. He's worked under some outstanding people. He knows the game. His players defend. I don't know if there's a weakness in that Florida team. I think if the Florida game against Kentucky, if they had played that on a neutral floor, or especially in Gainesville, Florida beats Kentucky. I think it was one of those nights in Rupp Arena that they shot a bunch of baskets and made some
Yeah.
baskets, and were able to win the game. But I think Florida probably may be as good as any team in the SEC. I think that was kind of a fluke performance by Tennessee. When I looked at the SEC network replay, it looked like Rick Barnes was a little baffled about how his team performed as well. So,
Yeah.
uh, but they get to play again pretty quick. That's one good thing about basketball. You can get those type of games behind you. You get to play the next game, and we'll see how Tennessee handles an embarrassing loss on the road. See how they come out and play their next game.
Yeah, and you can see, Coach, early on, I think with about 10 minutes to go in the first half, Tennessee had, 4 points? That's
Yeah,
hard to
something.
believe. I
Yeah.
and then you look over there on at Rick Barnes, you look at the players on the team, wasn't like they weren't trying, but Florida just came out with their hair on fire. And then you look at Tennessee, they've been number 1. People love Rick Barnes. Audrey's cousin Mark lives in this neighborhood in Knoxville. He sees him out all the time. Everybody likes Rick Barnes. How can you not? He's from Hickory, North Carolina. He's like you. I mean, people, you see these basketball coaches in ways you don't see football coaches. Now, before the virus, they wore a suit to the game. Now they're wearing a warm up suit. Like I said, you remember the Seinfeld episode when Costanza ordered the pair of elastic waist warm up pants, and Jerry said, "You've given up. That's it. You're not even trying to lose weight anymore. You've given up." But that someone, and also my wife, sent me a picture over the weekend of how far we've fallen in America. Here's Tom Landry in a suit and a hat, just distinguished,
Yeah,
and there's Mike McDaniels wearing some warm up pants. They're about to fall off, and he's just like a guy, a book nerd, but he's a hell of a coach. So we'll see.
yeah.
All right, Auburn went out to Austin last night. Texas basketball at the Moody Center. My friend Dave Cody was keeping me abreast of all that, and they got a good team, and Auburn's up by 20. And Coach, that last 7-8 minutes, it's like the NBA games. They start in the fourth quarter. Auburn was fortunate; they dominated, but they were fortunate to get the win. Had Texas, it wasn't that Texas wasn't playing hard, but kind of break that down for us.
Well, I think you got to compliment the Texas team. Auburn's extremely talented. I think Auburn and Alabama are similar. Uh, Kentucky a little bit. They're trying to play that way. They're a streaky team. You've got to keep Auburn and Alabama off of streaks. They both can go on runs, and if you can limit their runs, you have maybe an opportunity to beat those teams. I think what Texas did, they settled into a style of play the second half. They defended better,
Yeah.
and they kept Auburn from having the runs that they had in the first half and in the first 3 quarters of the game. And then, and Texas started scoring the ball. They got a little confidence and they cut that thing to single digits and had an opportunity had they had one more stop and got one more baskets to really put some pressure on that Auburn team. But I was impressed with Texas' ability to come back, have an opportunity to make the game workable within the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game. And I think the big thing is they kept Auburn from having runs that they're able to go on. Auburn, Alabama, they can go on a 12, 14-0 run in a matter of minutes and change the whole style of the game, the complex of the game by the way they attack you. So Texas did a nice job, and I think that's going to bode well for Texas when they go on the road and in their next game in particular.
Rodney Terry is a basketball coach. I mean, those guys, they play the full 40. To me, as long as the team's playing a full 40 or a full 60 in football, fighting, scratching, clawing, diving for balls, what do you have to not like as a coach if they're doing that? And you can put some talent in there, what can happen?
Well, I've always had a simple philosophy, and I've shared that with you before.
Yeah.
Good coaching and good players usually make for really good teams. And I think that's top to bottom in the SEC this year. There's just 2 or 3 teams that maybe aren't as good and as maybe they want to be from a talent standpoint. But certainly, you get the top 10 teams in the league. I got the top 8 for sure, and then I think there'll be a couple other teams that'll try to make that top 10. I'm not sure if
Okay.
there's 12 teams will go to the NCAA tournament after all is said and done, but I do think there'll be at least 10 teams, 8 for sure, possibly, and probably 10 teams go to the NCAA tournament out of the SEC.
Yeah. The Big Ten and the ACC, really the ACC for a long time, got a lot of the top athletes in the Deep South. And they would go to North Carolina or Duke. They would go to play at Indiana. It was not uncommon at all. That's not happening anymore. And Mike Slive, back in 2014, when he gave the famous edict, we've got to have a better product. The SEC network expects it. You can't expect Ruth Chris Steakhouse to serve the same cuts of meat that they serve at CK's coffee shop for a steak. But
Thank
and the
God.
money's here. Yeah, thank God. But you think about that. Uh, just I love college basketball. Growing up in Memphis, my God, going to the Memphis games. I mean, we slid on ice in 1974 to a game at the Mid-South Coliseum, and it was packed. I mean, that's the love people. And Coach, I want you to give your thoughts on this. People say, "Oh, the regular season doesn't matter. It's all about the tournament. That's all that matters." But when you've got a good team and look around the SEC top to bottom, you got a lot of really good teams and great coaches and players. Hell, my 96-year-old dad watches every Grizzlies game, Memphis game, and Auburn, and anything with the SEC. And he's paying attention if you don't have a good regular season, you're not going to have a good postseason, are you?
Yeah, well, you gotta take care of the regular season to have an opportunity to play in the postseason. So all
That's
these
right.
games are important, especially in the SEC this year, and in particular, the home court is so important this year in the SEC. And if you give up a home court game, that's like that's like giving up two games, in my opinion. You've got to go get it somewhere, and then you've got to protect the home court again. So. Uh, but you talk about the recruiting aspect of it. I think NIL and transfer portal has changed recruiting in so many ways.
Yeah.
It's more transactional now. Uh, personality doesn't really play a big part in it as it used to. I want to go play for that particular coach. I may like the coach and I may like the school, but if another school gives me $70,000 more money, I think I'm gonna go there. I tend to like them more now. So
Yeah.
I think that whole aspect of it has changed recruiting. Example, I was looking at this young man last night named Grill that plays for Missouri.
Yeah.
I think he started at Iowa State. Then he went to UNLV. Then he went back to Iowa State for 2 years. Now he's at Missouri. So in 5 or 6 years, he's been to 3 or 4 different schools and back to the same school twice. So it's a whole different game now in
Yeah.
recruiting, and
Yeah.
it's hard for me to really put my arms around that sort of recruiting environment that's created now by NIL and transfer portal.
Well, I would think it would be tough as a coach because you okay, let's go back to when you were coaching. You got up every morning early, you went into your office, you were probably meeting with your staff, drawing up plays, schemes, watching a lot of tape and all. Now, flip the, switch on NIL and the portal. You got guys coming in going, Coach, uh, man, this school's offering me 100,000 more than what I'm getting now. And you're sitting there like this, listening to him. And the guy goes on. And he's got his handlers with him now, too, Coach. He's got his posse. And you're listening to that and you're like, are you through? And it reminds me of brother Stephen O'Malley at Christian Brothers High School in Memphis. Man had hands as thick as catcher's mitts, city handball champion in Chicago. Parents would come in there that had a lot of money or couldn't rub two nickels together, talking about their kids and discipline. And he'd sit there and look at them and go, "You through?" And there'd be the crucifix behind him. He'd say, "We've been educating kids for since 1871. You keep making concrete or doing heart surgery, I'll discipline your son. If he can't handle it, let him go somewhere else." And he'd reel off some weaker schools. Wouldn't it drive you crazy for a kid to come in there who's contributing very little, misses practice a lot, and starts playing that kind of game with you? Because that's what I heard they
Well,
did. Nick Saban had to deal with. That's why he said, "See you later."
yeah. Well, if a player is doing that, then he's going to be dismissed anyway, whether he's getting paid or not. If a guy's missing practice and
Yeah,
not playing hard,
good.
it doesn't matter if he's getting money or not. You need to make a decision that's best for your team
Yeah.
always. I think always, regardless of the stature of the player. Uh, but I go back to what Nick Saban said. The players are getting paid now, and it's their responsibility to handle that in the right way and create value for themselves so they can go to the next level and get more value for how they perform and how they behave. I still think there are some non-negotiable qualities that have to go into a championship team. A competitive nature that you have, mental toughness, trying to be better than you were yesterday, being a good teammate, being on time. If you don't do those things, I don't care if you're getting paid or not getting paid. The opportunity to have a championship team won't take place. So even if players are getting paid now, I think they have to create a situation for themselves where they bring value for themselves in how they handle the
Yeah.
situation that they're in so they can create more value for themselves at the next level because that's where they all want to go at the high major level. They all want to go play in the
Yeah.
NBA or the NFL. So they have to handle that along the way to be able to get that opportunity by how they conduct themselves within the team and the situation that they're in at the present time.
You made a great comment about lottery picks. You hear that term used a lot on TV, the hype train. That's the best commercial I've seen in a while. But you say A lottery pick doesn't go out and score 5 points and get 2 rebounds. Lottery pick is
That's
20 and 12 most nights. And
yeah,
even when the
yeah.
team is struggling, they're going to be diving for balls. And even late in a game, when it's maybe the team's down by 20, they're still playing at 110%. Expand on that and how tough you think the kids are today, because if they don't have a hard ass coach like you or the people that I respect, uh, I don't think they survive very long.
Well, I think when I think sometimes coaches get caught up too much in the rating of players. And my first question on that is, who is rating this
Yeah.
player? Where did this rating come from? Who established him as a 4 star, as a 5 star? Is it some guy that never coached a team, or never got around players and understands what it takes to be outstanding in that particular sport? So that's my first thing. And I think the eye test should never go away in terms of evaluating talent. I used to like to watch players in timeouts, their body
Yeah.
language, how they react to a coach when he challenges him during the game, how they respond. I think all those things tell about the character of the player. And anytime you can match character with competitive nature
Yeah.
and someone who wants to be coached, you have a special type of
Yeah.
player. And I think that's what we always try to evaluate when we brought the guys to
Hmm.
LSU or wherever I coached. So I think those are qualities that you need to have in order to be successful in any
Yeah.
business or any profession that you choose to be in. So, and it's no different than being a great basketball player.
Mhm.
So, uh, I don't get, I never got caught up in, well, what's this guy
Yeah.
rated? Is he a 4 star,
Hmm.
3 star, 5 star, whatever the case may be? I tried to evaluate each guy on his own merit and what I saw and what we saw as a coaching
Yeah.
staff.
Coach, Chris Beard at Ole Miss. Talk about what he's doing
Yes.
there in his second. I think this is his ninth or 10th year as a head basketball coach, and he just wins everywhere he goes. Uh, Ole Miss, Andy Kennedy, 12 years, won about 20, 21 games a year average. Can Chris Beard
Mhm.
get Ole Miss to 25 to 30 in that range? Because I know one thing, that Grove Collective, has got a lot of money.
Well, see, that's the key. People ask me, can he do it at Ole
Mhm.
Miss or can he do it at Kentucky? Or it all goes back to, I think, what your collective
Yeah,
is. If I was getting a job at the high major level, my first negotiation tool wouldn't be a contract. It would be, what's your NIL money? That would be the first question that I would ask the AD or the management of their collective or whoever I
yeah,
meet with in terms of dollars and cents. Not they're going to pay the coach a lot of
yeah,
money, but do you have enough money to be competitive at the level
yeah,
you want to win as it relates to the NIL and the collective? So I think that's the most important thing. But in talking about Chris Beard, my example of that is what happened last week. Georgia beats Kentucky last night. I don't know if I have the final score written down, but they put up 80 or so last night, I think, in Athens. Uh, but they go to Ole Miss and they get 51. So what's Chris Beard about? He's about defending and
yeah,
rebounding. And if he gets good players or pretty good players on the offensive end, if they defend like that, Chris Beard's going to win some games because defense and rebounds travels in the
yeah,
SEC.
yeah.
3 point shooting may not travel as well, but what Chris Beard's about will travel. And if he can get some players who can score a little bit, he'll cause people some problems even on the road.
Yeah, and we're going to bring in Dudley Dawson, hogville.net here in a second. And Coach, I know you probably want to get going, but stay. You're always welcome on this show. We're going to be doing it again next week. And like I said, I love this regular season. I stayed up late last night, had a big fire going. It was really cold, but damn, John Calipari.
You should have been in Missouri, baby. You should have been in
How
Missouri.
what was that? I mean, that Columbia, I've been up there. That's a cold place. Of course, you're inside, but you
Ooh.
got to get on the plane, everything like that. Y'all said you got back about 1 o'clock in the morning. Uh, damn. Yeah.
Yeah.
I talk real quick and we'll bring in Dudley and then we'll let you go if and I know you got other things to do, but bring in Dudley Dawson. John Calipari at Arkansas, coach. He's the winningest coach in all of college basketball. Talk about him and how you think he's going to do at Arkansas, because I was up in Fayetteville in early October for the Tennessee game. You get to go to all these places, but damn, they've got some serious NIL money for basketball.
Well, I don't know for a fact what they have NIL. I know you hear rumors and you hear
Mm-hmm.
talk. You
Yeah.
would think with the money that's in Arkansas, and I spent some time there, they do have certainly an opportunity to have a good NIL, and I'm sure Calipari would discuss some of that up front before he strolled into Fayetteville. To have an
Yeah.
opportunity to build a championship team, but. Uh, Cal, we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I hadn't seen enough of Arkansas to know how good they can be or how good they will be. Uh, they come here next week. We go to Ole Miss Saturday, and then they come to LSU next Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it's.
All right, Coach. Coach frozen in time. Yeah. Okay.
Did I freeze?
Yeah. Yeah. We froze for it's cold outside. You froze. I think the feel like temperature in Memphis this morning was 13 degrees. And I took the dogs out, one of them this morning. I was like, there's no wind. It's really not that bad. 13 degrees, But, so, Coach, one more question but, and I know Dudley, we got Coach John Brady on here with us. And Dudley, you cover the Hogs, and you heard what Coach just said. I think you're in Denver. Didn't you go to the Nuggets game last night?
Yes, I did. Up here visiting our daughter, and really enjoyed watching that game last night and being part of the probably, I don't know, 40% Celtic crowd that was at a different Denver game. So
Holy
yeah, that
cow.
was fun. That was fun.
Yeah. Well, it's like when the Lakers come to Memphis, it used to be 50% Lakers, and as the Grizzlies got better and better, it's more stuff. But, you heard what Coach said about John Calipari. Kind of expand on what you're seeing in the first year, NIL and what he's done with the portal and all that.
Well, obviously, I think if you want Arkansas to be a great basketball team, eat more chicken. The
Yeah.
Tyson chicken up here is a big backer of the NIL.
I love it.
There's more money being put into basketball per capita than football at this time. But obviously they went to Tennessee last weekend and they got slapped around, and then Tennessee goes to Florida last night and gets slapped around. It's going to be tough in this league. 3 road wins, although I saw last night. When those road wins are going to be so precious in the league this year because it's so good.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, go
I'm
ahead,
gonna tell
Coach.
you a team. I'm gonna tell you a team that I think is really good, and I saw them practice early on is Mississippi State.
Yeah.
They're put together well. That's another guy, Chris Jans, who's a tough-minded, defending, rebounding sort of guy, and sprinkles in enough offense. But they're really tough to guard. They're big. They're strong. I think that team travels well. What they did to Vandy last night was pretty impressive. So,
Yeah.
and that's a tough place to play. That place was rocking last night. So, I got Mississippi State as my real kind of sleeper team. It's going to surprise a lot of people, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could agree. There's so many good offensive teams in this league, but who's going to rise to the top is at the end is who takes their defense on the road, and I think we've already seen a few teams that can do that.
Yeah.
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 I
Coach,
agree.
you watching Dari Noka last night with Patrick and Ron Slade, he thought Mississippi State, are they one of the top 2 or 3? That was a question that he that he asked, but we hadn't even talked about them. And I mean, so you look at this league 1 through 16, you can't name a single school that's not putting the resources into basketball now. And that's a powerful statement. But Coach, before you go, tell us about these games tonight in the SEC. What matchups that you like, and then let's do this again next week. I cannot thank you enough for taking time to share with us because I know you got back late, but you're up early. But love your insight into all this basketball because, again, it's cold. It's a good time to be inside at night and get a fire going, get some cold beers going, and leave us with one bit of parting wisdom. Of all the arenas that you visited, Which one has the best food other than in Baton Rouge? That doesn't count because it's on another level.
The best food. I don't. When I
Don't
go
they
there,
bring y'all
I
food?
tell you what. Arkansas always has good food back there for the media. I kind of like
Yeah.
their operation that they have up there. And when I was coaching, I used to walk in the media room and eat anyway. I'd just bust up in there and try to steal some food from the media guys. But it's fun. But my biggest matchup this weekend is how LSU plays at Ole Miss. I mean, we're 0-2. We given up a home game. We gave up a road game. My biggest concern right now is how the Tigers play in Oxford on Saturday. And if we go 0-3 and then we come back with the Hogs here and we don't get them, we got Alabama, Auburn, A&M. I mean, it could be difficult for LSU. So the next two games for us in Oxford and playing Arkansas at home is going to be a challenge.
Yeah. All right. Coach, thank you so much.
All right,
Again,
guys.
have y'all next week. Appreciate it so much.
Love to. All
Dudley,
right.
you look here at what is going on in college basketball, the resurgence. I wouldn't call it a resurgence. It's just an emphasis on everything. This league, when it decides something's important, look at football, and you look at basketball. Uh, when have you seen top to bottom the SEC this strong? And Vince Ferrara is going to join us here in just a minute from Knoxville. But Dudley, this is a special time in SEC basketball history. We're going to look back on, I think, and remember.
Yeah,
Fondly.
obviously it's never been 1-16 because you just got 15 and 16 into the conference this year, but 1-14.
That's a dumb question.
I've been around here for covering Arkansas and the other SEC schools and Southwest Conference school for 40 years, and this is as tough as it's ever been to me. And I don't make that statement lightly. I watch so many games, and I see how each one of these teams has, as you said, put money into the program, cares about it more. I've been joking about it being a basketball league, but right now, if you had to size it up, that would be the case.
Yeah, and Vince Ferrara going to be here with us now. Watching that Tennessee-Florida game with my wife, who is a volunteer for life, she was like, God, she was getting mad. And I said, well, sometimes you get out of bed and you slip on the kids' roller skates that are sitting there. It just seemed like Tennessee couldn't get it going, but you got to credit Florida for punching them in the face early and just not letting up. Tennessee will be back, Vince. I mean, that's just how this stuff is. But kind of your takeaways from what happened down there at the O-Dome, one of the oldest air-supported arenas probably left in the country.
Good to be on with you guys. First off, appreciate it. Hope you guys are staying warm. There was flurries here a moment ago, but man, It is frigid. But hey, who knew? It was cold in Gainesville. We had a guest on from Gainesville to preview the matchup, and he was like, "It's almost as cold here as it is there. It's 31. It was in the morning." Who knew there was an avalanche in Gainesville because Tennessee was on the receiving end of that
global warming.
And for sure. And I got out of there. I was in Tampa for a couple of weeks, and I got out of there just in time before the cold weather. I escaped the Florida cold weather and get to even colder weather and snow.
Hey, I've got the same thing going here. I'm sitting here looking out my future son-in-law's office door here, and there's snow on the ground. But I am told there's more in Northwest Arkansas, and then when I get back, that my plane will land, there on a snowy runway and all that. So, it's supposed to more come on Thursday and Friday. So, geez, I wonder if there's anything I could watch this weekend that would, keep my interest and keep me inside this weekend.
Yeah. Hey, we talked about it this morning on the show. 5 straight days of playoff football between college the next couple of days, and weather could impact that Cotton Bowl, as you know, in kind of your region, Dudley. And then 3 straight days of the NFL playoffs. It is a beautiful thing. But to circle back, Rob, to your question, anytime you have something like this, people want to know. It's like the sports radio, sports broadcaster thing. Was it Florida or was it Tennessee? In that voice, by the way. And to lose by 30
Yeah.
It's both. It's
like
C,
that.
all of the above. And Florida gave up 106 points to Kentucky a couple of days ago at 58% shooting from the floor. And they were so much better than that or anything else we had seen from any of their other games that they had won prior to that with their unbeaten start. And they showed to me that they've got the dudes when they are locked in. And Tennessee showed that, look, they were undefeated. They didn't have a breeze schedule because they might have, Jimmy Dykes mentioned it too. They might have had the best win going into that game when they won at Illinois. So it's not like they've had a breeze to get to number one, but we still maybe hadn't seen them challenge at the level that they were going to get challenged in SEC play. And look, they missed a bunch of shots to start out the game. They had open looks, and then they kept shooting to try to get out of that. And they settled for jump shots. And Florida took it. Florida started doing what some other teams had done, and they were backing off Okpara and backing off Meshack and letting them shoot, and Tennessee would shoot. And they started out, I think, 1 for 24 from three. I mean, just historically bad numbers. And I was surprised that Tennessee's floor was that low. That was the fewest points scored in a game under Rick Barnes at 43. So prior to that, they had scored 46, and they beat Auburn in that rock fight from a couple of years
ago. All
so
we've been together, and we've talked about different football situations and stuff. Now we're on to basketball. What I found out was that the reason Arkansas lost so bad at Tennessee was not because they shot the ball bad, not because they didn't play defense. It was because John Calipari let them sleep in on Saturday morning instead of go to shoot around. Now I've heard a lot of things, but I'm pretty sure that it was the execution out there on the floor, not the extra sleep that did it. But here you go with lose a game. Okay, yeah, maybe you're not as good as we thought you were.
And Dudley, we referenced Arkansas this morning a number of times because the way John Calipari was irked at how they were manhandled Arkansas by Tennessee on the boards. Tennessee was manhandled by Florida on the boards. And Tennessee's been a really good rebounding team this year, offensively and defensively. Just looked like they were a step slow, the aggressiveness, everything that Tennessee typically brings to the table, Florida did to Tennessee and did it better. There's also that motivation of the number one team coming to your place. They improved off of that Kentucky game clearly. And it kind of, you mentioned football, Dudley. It reminded me a little bit of what the football season was. And we would look at a game and then make a long-term judgment on a football team. And I think this was another reminder that in today's college athletics with the portal and so many new teams and dynamics, it's game to game. You could look like the number one team in the country one week and then look like that in Gainesville the next, and then you could go back to looking like the number one team the next game. So I think it's kind of the state of this transitionary college athletics that we have right now where it's game to game and it is what it is. And then you just start over a new matchup and a new focus and motivation for those players.
Looking around, Dudley, that we're kind of getting the old R2D2 from Dudley. I can't hear him, but but yeah, I don't know if he's freezing or not. But Dudley, maybe reboot and come back in. But Vince, I like you say it's both. It's Florida and it's Tennessee. Defense travels in football. Defense travels in basketball. Pitching travels in baseball. I think you're a lot like my friend. I've known Bill for 46 years. Bill Cameron down in Auburn. You talk about a baseball guy. You remind me a lot of Bill Cameron. I think baseball is probably your favorite sport, if I'm guessing.
Baseball,
But
football, it's right there. I think in terms of an
yeah,
attendance sport, absolutely. TV is a little bit different, and then
yeah,
I call radio, so kind of all over the place with that. But TV sport, it's football, but in
yeah.
person, it's
I've
baseball.
always said there is not a better sport to attend in person than a baseball game. You think about as a kid out there with your dad, your grandfather, just going to those games. Butch Thompson talks about being in Omaha on Father's Day, for the College Baseball World Series. There's just nothing like it. And you look at pitching travels in baseball. If you've got a deep bullpen, you can do it. And I was talking to one of the members of our hunting club. He's got a son at IMG Sports Academy. He's a junior, big kid out of Nashville. He's already 6'2", about 205 pounds, just all muscle. They spend like 6 hours a day, and then they take 3 classes a day. But man, there's so much watching, and we y'all always are on Wednesdays, you and Dudley, and Dudley will be back with us momentarily. But Christmas Day hit, and then New Year's Day hit, and we don't take off many days. Brendan always says I'm a slave driver, but I mean we really don't. But we took off, so I've missed you. Hadn't talked about it. The Tennessee game up in Columbus. I predicted there'd be 35 or 40,000 because Mark Ham, Audrey's cousin, was telling me that all these Tennessee friends of his had, quote, cracked the code to get in there. And Kirk Herbstreit even said, he and his dog said that they'd never seen a crowd. I've never seen that. No, Georgia at Notre Dame in 2017, they were 40,000. Right. But Tennessee, in a playoff game, you would have thought, no way. Damn. That's why Tennessee gets on TV a lot and gets a big that fan. And we're going to talk back and forth Tennessee and Arkansas. And I've got some questions from the viewers, but talk about that crowd that went up there, and then the team. Maybe Ohio State getting beat by Michigan made them so angry. That was the worst thing to happen to Tennessee. But your takeaway on that game?
Yeah, first of all, the fans that were there was a massive crowd. There's people that I know that were up there. I think, and Chris Fowler didn't buy into it. I think 40 might have been a big number. I think north of 20, I think is fair. But regardless,
I heard 70.
Yeah, just to see someone invade an always packed Big Ten stadium like that in a playoff game, as you mentioned, just insane. And but they were completely nullified because of the great start by Ohio State. So, and that was kind of one of the things that we talked about going in is, look, would the Ohio State fans turn on the Buckeyes if they didn't get off to a good start? Well, instead, they got them fired up and flushed the Michigan game in their minds, at least for a few hours. And then the Tennessee fans weren't able to make an impact whatsoever. So as far as the on the field, 2 things, Rob. One is, and this is what I kind of initially thought when I saw the matchup, Tennessee or Ohio State isn't playing Michigan. They're playing Tennessee. And Michigan is so much in their head that they just play that way against them and different against everyone else. But they were even better than they were against everyone else against Tennessee. And Will Howard played his best game of his career, followed it up with a great game against Oregon too. But he's the one that unlocks all of that elite talent. I'm not sure there's a position group better at any one school in all of college football than the wide receivers at Ohio State. And Will Howard wasn't maximizing those guys because he was inconsistent, but he played his best game in that game. That unlocked them. And then the second big thing, Rob, is the flaws that we saw from Tennessee during the year. They surfaced on a much bigger level in that game as well. The pass protection, the wide receivers, the young offensive, the young linebackers that would be overly aggressive and get out of their gaps and positions. And Ohio State was misdirectioning them like crazy, and they missed Keenan Peely. So those are all things. And then you throw in losing Dylan Sampson early in the game.
3 carries.
Yeah. And even when he came back, he wasn't fully healthy. And then they had to give up on the run at that point as well. Ohio State was up 21-0 before Tennessee had positive yardage on offense. And so Dylan Sampson coming back at that point, they just weren't going to utilize him anyway. I thought Nico showed a lot of guts in that game. He has things to improve on, but he's the least of my worries if I'm Tennessee. That a lot of the area, and Georgia was a similar deal. What happened to Georgia against Notre Dame? These are all issues they had during the season. They didn't have explosive playmakers to bail them out and just make a play something out of nothing. Their offensive line couldn't pass protect. So the things that we saw at times in the regular season, Tennessee and Georgia were able to overcome against a better opponent, they weren't able to do so. So those were a couple.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about with Coach Brady. When people say the regular season in college basketball doesn't matter, it's all about March Madness. It's like, well, you got to have a great regular season to get there. So every game matters. And I just know that I can't stop watching this stuff. It's addictive. Dudley Dawson in the frozen tundra. He's in Denver. Now, Denver's got some great, beer bars, some great microbreweries.
Really had not heard or visited any of those.
Yeah, of course not. But you can go out and get you an elk tenderloin. I tell you what I'm gonna have for dinner tonight is some armadillo eggs. It's deer meat.
I do. I like that. When I go to cover baseball in Arlington, when Arkansas plays down there each year, they've got a place called Humperdinck's over there that has those armadillo eggs. I'm a big fan of those.
Oh, yeah, deer meat with the jalapeno cream cheese wrapped in bacon. I had a venison burrito for dinner the other night. It's a whole meal. And the venison tamales, you cannot beat them. And we had some duck tamales. But Dudley,
get all those at Sonic.
Oh, yeah, at Sonic. No. I get those at Dino's Deer Processing in Memphis with my big guy, Jeff McBride. Does about 10,000 deer a year, a few elk, every now and then a cougar, Hey, if it ever ran, flew, swam, or crawled, it's on my table, or I'm eating it with my new bearware china that I got for Christmas that Audrey makes fun of. It's got bears on it. Dudley, let's talk about, you heard what Vince just said.
Mm-hmm.
Football-wise, let's get back. Arkansas had a lot of guys go in the portal. I mean, I was shocked because, I'm from Memphis, and so many of my kids' friends, they all know Patrick Kutas. They were shocked that he would leave Arkansas. But it's the world we live in, and nobody does tampering or anything like that. We know that. But he decided on his own to go to Ole Miss and play. And Lane Kiffin doesn't do any tampering. There's no tampering. Anyway, what the hell? A bunch of guys left. Talk about
30. Arkansas found something to lead the nation in. 30 kids went in the portal. One kid jumped in, jumped back out, jumped back in, jumped back out, jumped back in, and played in the Liberty Bowl. Had 50 yards carrying. You
love that guy.
It's been a while. They've had a pretty good 8th in one poll, 12th in another in the portal class rankings. They got 2 more yesterday. They've done their best to replenish. The biggest thing decided to do was spend money on those coming in, not up the salary, the ones they had here. That'll get you out the door pretty quick. And they're still going to have to find about 8 more spots because they've got to get better in certain areas. They've got guys on the team that are suddenly going to be going somewhere after spring, I believe. You got to. It's sad, but you have to continue to refresh your talent. Over recruit what you have, and you've got another one of these situations to where you go into a contract year. This year was one for Coach Pittman. Next year's going to be as well because that schedule. UAPB in Little Rock is one thing, and Notre Dame in Fayetteville is another for your non-conference schedule.
Absolutely, it is. Vince, Tennessee, how bad were they hit in the portal, guys leaving, and how much did they gain by those incoming that are there as of, let's see, 9:57 a.m. Eastern time? They could be gone by lunch.
It's a
It's
fluid
very fluid.
situation. There's no doubt about it. Look, people have freaked out here, and Tennessee has had 15 leave the portal, leave to the portal. Now, one of those was their backup quarterback in Gaston Moore, who wasn't on scholarship, but still, he's on the two deep, is an important player that played some for them. So 15 out, but Tennessee is last in the top 50 in portal additions. They're tied with Clemson with only 2. And they just got their second one in Amari Jefferson, who was a 4-star wide receiver from the Baylor School in Chattanooga. He picked Alabama over Tennessee. He was a true freshman at Alabama this year, had an injury, didn't play, but he committed to Nick Saban. Nick Saban's no longer there. He didn't play this year. So he joined a big group of Alabama receivers that left. So he was added by Tennessee in a big need position. Tennessee had 5 wide receivers leaving the portal. So that's been the position du jour, like the defensive backs were last year. That's where they've had a mass exodus this year, which, obviously people are going to ask, why is that? Why are all these receivers leaving? Part of what we've always kind of wondered is if eventually other schools would negatively recruit Tennessee because they don't play a lot of wide receivers. They have a small rotation of guys that they use. Can't even call it much of a rotation because the starters play and then a series here and there for everybody else. And their 5-star Mike Matthews was one that they were able to bring back. And there were reports that he was going in the portal. A lot of us, fans, us in the media, we wondered why this kid wasn't playing more this year when you weren't getting the production, you were getting too many drops. Played a little bit more at the end of the year because of injuries, but he never put his name in the portal. They ended up getting him back. That was huge. But they only have 7, counting the signing class of freshmen, they only have 7 wide receivers now. So they lost a couple of graduation as well. So it's still a position they're going to need to add. And then running back, they're very thin. Sampson's moving on to the NFL. Had 2 other backup scholarship guys are headed to the portal. They do have walk-on and Deshaun Bishop, who I would imagine they would try to put on scholarship. But that's it. And Peyton Lewis. So they need to add at that position. They're losing a bunch on the offensive line. Now, they aren't like stars or starters, but they still need some bodies there because look, first-year wide receivers under Josh Heupel, we haven't seen them break out. And everybody points to Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State and Ryan Williams at Alabama. Tennessee hasn't had those first-year receivers, freshmen or portal guys, Thornton or Brazel. They didn't have big years at first year. For whatever reason in this offense, or maybe it's the individuals, it takes time for those guys to make an impact. That's a position they have to be great at in addition to quarterback. And so they have to make sure they have the right guys and get more production out of that position. So the offense is one of the priorities right now for
Well, I
Tennessee.
tell you what, I totally agree with you. You've got a situation here at Arkansas, which I know we're going to have different things come up every year, but a guy named Desmond James did not play the whole year except on special teams. He comes into the bowl, catches 3 passes for, I think, 134 yards. One was 94 yards. So he's played significantly in one game, sets the all-time school record for longest pass play, 94 yards. But I think it was longer than that because he just kept on running right into the portal. He got into the portal the next few days after that. And, from all indications, won't be back. And everybody said, hey, they got a new breakout star. Why didn't he play? Well, he ran right into the portal and haven't heard yet where he's going. But I think that's going to be an all-time. Got the school record. I'm out.
Yeah. Well, it's like these bands that used to tour. They still do. But the classic bands, I'm sure everywhere Elvis went, he had a different gospel choir quartet that would come up and play and sing with him because there's nobody like Elvis live. I mean, nobody. That's what we are in football. And go back to Tennessee. When Jeremy Pruitt left Tennessee, I still think he's one of the greatest defensive coaches I've ever seen. When he left, 38 guys hit the portal. 2 guys were medically retired due to injuries, and 4 guys were released from their national letter of intent. That's 44. And albeit for I thought a crappy call in the Purdue game, wasn't it? In the Nashville Music City Bowl, it could have been 8-5 that first year. I don't know if that was Josh Heupel's best coaching job, but I'm shocked that Squirrel White left. He's from Birmingham, and he goes to Florida State. Gus is there. I guess Gus and Mike Norvell. You talk about a program. This is, where Florida State's when 31 players quit on that team and didn't give a damn about the school, their teammates, their fans, their brand, and got emasculated on national television 63-7 by Georgia. They've been in a death spiral ever since then.
Yeah, but
I know,
NIL,
I'm saying they
Rob,
brought in they just brought in the wrong quarterback, and it's the most costly injury that y'all have seen to a program. Jordan Travis being hurt in a game against an outmatched opponent, North Alabama. How costly was that one injury? What it did to Florida State. I can't think of a more devastating injury with worse consequences that I've seen in college football in recent history.
Millions of dollars, I think, in publicity
Yeah.
and just getting better players and all that. We talked about it very early this season on the show that there is no way that they didn't come into this year still talking about, and it went throughout the year from game one to not. They did not have to worry about it this year. There was no thought of them being this year.
No.
And I've never seen a fall so bad. I mean, they went off the cliff.
Yeah.
Well, and Florida State had a bunch of additions through the portal last year. That's another reminder for teams out there that load up on the portal. It is not a guarantee. I don't care what they were rated or what their stats were at their previous school. It is not a guarantee that by getting a lot of bodies in the portal that it's going to come together and work out for you. For some, it can. The 4 teams in the semifinals, none of them were rated very high in last year's portal rankings. Now you say, well, what about Ohio State? $20 million. Well, Ohio State lost a lot more in bodies than they added in players. It's just they hit on the right guys, some for depth, some as starters, and those guys were high money guys, but they paid off because they didn't miss on a bunch of portal guys that ruin your culture and all that kind of stuff. And real quick on Florida State, Blind Squirrel Sports asked about, is Florida State becoming Tennessee South? You mentioned Rob Squirrel White going to Florida State. Another reserve defensive lineman from Tennessee, Jason Jenkins, is headed to Florida State. He mentioned that there's 3. There's only 2 from this year. A former Vol that went to Memphis, and Elijah Herring, a linebacker, played last year in Memphis. He is going from Memphis to Florida State. So that's the number of 3 former Vols at Florida State. That's how they're loading up, but only 2 from.
I'm going to throw
one other answer for Blind Squirrel. Yes, Arkansas did load up on secondary. Got another guy yesterday from Auburn, of all places. But they knew they had to get more in the secondary. They've done that, and they still have 2 tight ends, 1 offensive lineman, a couple of defensive linemen, a linebacker that they would like to get in. Obviously, that's going to happen after spring drills and all that, because that's the next time they'll have the availability.
Well, and there are those playoff teams, Dudley, there's that 5-day window. So maybe some of these teams are kind of holding out to see who hits the portals that are back.
My colleague Otis Kirk thinks that 5-day window thing needs to be shut.
Yeah. Well, it's distracting practicing. I'm going to make a proposal that we have a new bowl. I go back to 1982, Bob Burks, then sportscaster at that time, on the Saturday afternoon, 5 o'clock newscast on WMC TV5 in Memphis. The Memphis Tigers were 0-10 and beat Arkansas State, I think, in the last game of the season before a crowd of 2,800 or something. It was awful. And there weren't even enough people, as my friend Joel Johnson said, to take down the goalpost. There just weren't enough people. And so Bob Burks comes on the newscast and goes, this just in, officials from the Toilet Bowl in Flushing Meadows, New York, have announced they've invited Memphis to be a participant in the bowl. I mean, right after that newscast, he was relieved of his duties. never was on the air in Memphis again. My point being, I think it would be a pretty big draw. Take the two statistically worst college football teams in Division I every year and let them play in a bowl game in Flushing Meadow, New York, and call it the Toilet Bowl. And you could get a Kohler or someone like that to sponsor it and pay the guys to have a crappy performance or piss poor performance. I mean, you can have a lot of fun having a toilet bowl with the worst teams, and I bet you get some eyeballs watching it.
Yeah, right. But I watch that with Dallas and the New York Giants a lot. So
yeah.
I smell a lot of opt-outs, Rob.
There'd be a lot of opt-outs. But we're going to wrap it up here in a minute. Thinking about where we are in college sports, and I know, Vince, you've got to go here at now, but Vince, close out, let people know how they can follow you, and I want to come back and ask Dudley one more thing, but thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, always an honor to be on this awesome show and with Dudley each week as well. And you can give me a follow on all the socials, Vince Sports, VINCE Sports. Obviously, with basketball, it's front and center right now, but football is big time all the time. So we're talking about it. We had Titans analyst Dave McGinnis on. They have the number 1 overall pick and had some awesome guests on our show. So you can check out those podcasts on our website, 991thesportsanimal.com. And then, on the YouTube channel as well, Vince Sports, and you can just look up Vince Ferrara as well.
You're on right before you come on the air, so people can be listening in Central Time, 6 to 9. Roger that?
Yeah, 6 to 9 Eastern for sure. The Involved Network, and I'm going to be doing I'll talk to you guys more about it next week. I think we're starting a new podcast for the TV show I do, starting a network, video network of YouTube channels, and then they're going to use some of all of our YouTube channel shows for a television show, and all his shows are highly rated. It's going to be called Next Level, where I'll be focusing on Tennessee players in the pros and different sports. So we'll plug that in the future. But man, always great to be on with
Absolutely.
you guys. Stay warm. Appreciate you.
Love hearing that, Dudley.
Thanks.
Dudley, thinking about like what Vince is doing. That's the kind of stuff we're working on here, building this network, and we're going to be hitting 1 million views here soon. And that's what our goal is in this first year in this format. You got an executive producer like Brendan Martin. Right now, I think he's out in a horse pasture, had an emergency this morning producing this show. You talk about a badass mofo, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and that's what I love is that's what's cool about this business is you always find excuses to win.
Well, Dudley, I let him know I'm gonna have that Blue Yeti set up next week.
Hey, listen, Dudley.
It should be much better. I won't be dropping off and all.
Dudley Dawson, get your Blue Yeti and get that done because you look and sound so sexy.
Hey, Dudley,
your
sound.
I'm about to walk through the Denver airport in Celtics
what?
gear.
You're in my hometown?
Yes.
You're in my hometown.
Yes.
Why didn't you tell me? I had hooked up with some peeps. You need some of my peeps, Dudley. I know how you are.
Yeah. She fortunately knows the places to go and the places not to go up here. So.
Who are you going with?
Do what?
I said, who are you going with? Where you? Just Denver?
No, I've been my wife Patricia and I have been up here to see our daughter Camilla and our future son-in-law, Charlie, this week. Yeah, and we're flying back today. But I will walk proudly through the Denver airport with my Boston gear on.
Well, that is
I'm not wearing cowboy gear this week or anything.
Dudley, speaking of the Celtics, one of the funniest things ever, the Wall Street Journal talked about Johnny Most, the former voice of the Celtics on the radio. One time, Larry Bird there was a foul called, and Larry Bird's elbow hit a guy in the eye, and Johnny Most with that gravelly voice goes, "Hey, he hit Larry Bird in the elbow with his eyeball. What are you talking about?"
I remember that.
You remember
I
that
remember
call?
that. Yeah, he was definitely what you call a homer.
Oh, no, not at all. Hey, you know Rick Schaefer, by the way, don't you, on the Arkansas
Oh
Sports
yes,
Network?
yes, well, very well.
I didn't realize he's retiring from the Springdale School Board.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's still going to be working though with Arkansas, isn't he?
Yeah, he still does the football games on the weekend, obviously,
Yeah.
and does a lot of other stuff. Good man, known him since
Oh,
first got up to Fayetteville in 1981, and yeah, it's you know there's fewer and fewer of us older guys up here now, but there's still a pretty good group of guys that have been here from the 80s on and watched everything go down.
well, mentoring is so big. Like we have our interns, William Halliday. We get Oakley McFerrin on here when he can. He's a freshman at Auburn. William's a junior in journalism, starting to do some really good writing. And that's something, and I know you mentor, students and what have you. But by the way, I got to get this weekend over to Blue Jays and Grubs. They gave me the cake I bought the other day when I was in there and the container that she said, "Sweetie, just bring it back next time you're
There
here."
you go.
Don't you
There you
love
go.
people in
That's
the
my
country
people.
like that?
That's my people.
Damn right they are.
Yeah, and then mentioning guys have been on. So Trip Keener's doing a fantastic job
Yes.
in his role
Yes.
in Little Rock. It's so
Yep.
great to see and listen to. So proud of him and where he's just taking the ball and run with it.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that's my pledge brother, Brian Keeter from Heber Springs. That's his nephew. And getting him involved and just how quickly he just like dials in. I'm going to Fayetteville. Next thing you know, he's on the buzz, 103.7 the buzz in Little Rock with our friend Wes Moore. And and he appreciates this craft. And that is so important. And Brendan has trained and his dad Buddy a number of interns. But I love that part of this business when someone says, "Can you help me with something?" Because I can't count the number of people who have helped me and continue to help me. So I just want to say, Dudley, let them know how they can follow you. And then I'll close out with a word about our sponsors and let everybody go. But thanks for joining us. Have a safe bus ride back. You get back Sunday, don't you?
Yeah, Hogville.net. We cover all 19 Arkansas sports, and it seems like all of them's going on right now in some form or fashion.
Yes.
And then Fearless Friday. You know how much I enjoy the high school sports, and I've started to write high school basketball stories, enjoying doing that, and obviously you can continue to follow the celebration of the Celtics and the not so celebrated Cardinals and Cowboys on my Xer or Twitter or whatever they call it these days. That thing Elon Musk is behind.
Well, and I'm with you. You sit there and you don't know what to call them anymore. I call it Twix, so we'll just make it simple like that. But Dudley, let's do this again next week. Yeti Blue coming through next week. You're going to be better than Ezra. All right, take care. All right, you bet. Brendan, let me say something about our sponsors. Again, blessed to have great sponsors like Winter Timber Outdoors. Folks, Winter Timber Outdoors is in Athens, Alabama, but they're growing in what is the geographical footprint of the Southeastern Conference, okay? We're working hard to help brand them. They're a brand you need to patronize, do business with them. You can go online, take a picture of that QR code. Winter Timber has everything you need if you're a hunter, outdoor hunting, from dove hunting to deer hunting, your big game hunting outfitter, deer stands, the food, the corn, stuff to develop your food plots, duck hunting, decoys, Sitka gear, Dixie decoys, hell, duck camp. They got everything you're looking for, okay? Over 2,000 shotguns, rifles, pistols, handguns in the store, ammunition like Migra, they've got it. I love these Migra loads, people. They will fold a duck like a napkin. They are the best loads that I have shot that I can remember. They've got everything for you. Again, open every day of the week. They have a store they broke ground on in Auburn back in mid-November. expected to open in June. Kenny Winter, Dylan Monroe, great people. The staff, they know what they're talking about. Let them know you heard about them on Sideline. And Landers Ford be open right now, Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Get out there, see Brad Bellamy. If you buy corporate fleet vehicles, they got you covered in all respects. Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the square in Collierville. It's after Christmas, folks. A lot of stuff on sale. They got a 50% off rack. Filson, Barber, STS, Pendleton, Schaefer. Great selection of men's and women's boots, kids' boots, toys, you name it, they've got it. Luggage, Raven, Charles, JM, the staff, ain't none better. You're looking for a hunting dog, go to Facebook, Web-Footed Kennels, Jonesboro, Arkansas. Our friend Chris Aiken, they do a great job. They train dogs for hunt tests, field trials. They do selective breeding throughout the year. Web-Footed Kennels in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And also the great folks at Coolmore Logistics and Transportation, Memphis-based with a global reach trucking company. Anything you got to ship. All of our sponsors, find them at sidelines.live. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Take care of the people around you. The stronger you are, the better you are for everybody else. Good night, everybody. See you in the morning.